The last time I saw Julian, he was 19, a wiry shadow in the community art studio, his sketchbook a fortress against the world. His pencil scratched with a fevered urgency, as if he could draw himself out of the silence that cloaked him. I was 24, teaching evening classes to pay rent, my poetry dreams buried under a pile of unpaid bills. He was just a quiet kid, slipping out before anyone could catch his name. We exchanged nods, nothing more, and when he stopped coming, he faded from my mind like a half-finished verse. Last month, I stepped into the old studio, now a co-working space for creatives, and my breath caught. Julian stood by the window, the late afternoon light carving sharp shadows across his face. He'd grown into himself, taller, broader, his leather jacket taut over shoulders that carried a quiet power. His dark hair fell into hazel eyes that held a depth I hadn't seen before, like they'd witnessed secrets he hadn't yet shared. When he turned and saw me, his gaze wasn't casual. It was hungry, tracing my face, my lips, my neck, like he was already sketching me in his mind. "Elena," he said, my name a low rumble in his throat. I smiled, but my chest tightened, a spark flaring under my ribs. "Julian, it's been years!" He stepped closer, boots scuffing the hardwood, the air thick with the studio's scent of paint, coffee, and aged wood. He didn't rush to speak, just watched me, his eyes lingering on my collarbone, the curve of my jaw. My skin flushed, a betraying warmth spreading through me. We talked briefly, safe topics, the studio's new purpose, his freelance graphic design gigs, my copywriting job, while I wrestled with a poetry collection. But every word felt like a thread pulling us closer. I noticed his hands, long fingers curling around his sketchbook, a faint scar snaking across his knuckles. His voice, deeper now, sent a shiver through me when he asked, "Still writing poems?" I nodded, throat dry, hyper-aware of his jacket creaking as he shifted, the space between us shrinking. "Still drawing?" He smirked, a half shrug. "When I can't sleep." I left that evening with a warmth I couldn't shake, like I'd brushed against something raw and alive. At home, alone in my apartment, I stood before my mirror, my sweater slipping off one shoulder. My fingers traced my collarbone where his gaze had rested, and I felt a pulse. Not desire, not yet, but the echo of being seen. My life had been a quiet ache, years of solitary nights with notebooks and wine, my heart scarred from a childhood where love was a locked door. I'd learned to live with the loneliness, called it home, but Julian's eyes had cracked that open, letting in a draft I couldn't ignore. I didn't plan to see him again so soon, but the studio became a magnet. I told myself I needed the space to write, not the chance of finding him. A week later, he was there, sketching at a corner table, brow furrowed in focus. I sat up nearby, my laptop open to a stalled poem. The silence between us thrummed, electric, heavy with possibility. He slid a sketch across the table, a woman's hand gripping a pen, veins faint under delicate skin, the lines tender but sure. "Yours," he said, eyes on his paper. My pulse spiked. I hadn't known he was watching. We fell into a rhythm, late evenings in the studio, working side by side, our words sparse but weighted. He'd read a line from my poem, his voice a soft caress, and my skin would prickle. I'd trace his sketches, their darkness mirroring the loneliness I knew too well. Once, our fingers brushed when I passed him a coffee, and I flinched, heat flooding my face. He didn't smile, just held my gaze, his eyes saying what we both felt but wouldn't name. The studio fed the tension, its high ceilings echoing our silences, string lights casting a warm glow, the creak of old floors under our steps. I dressed with intention now, a silk blouse that hugged my shoulders, earrings that swayed when I moved, a jasmine perfume that lingered in the air. I caught him watching, the way his eyes followed the line of my neck, the curve of my wrist as I typed. I watched him too, the flex of his jaw when he erased a line, the way his sleeves rode up, revealing taut muscle. The air was always too warm, my breath too quick. One night, I stayed late, the studio empty save for us. My poem about longing was unraveling. The words nodded in my head. Julian sketched across from me, his pencil slow, deliberate. The silence was thick, charged. I sighed, shoving my laptop aside, and he looked up. "What's wrong?" His voice was soft, almost a whisper. I hesitated. "I can't write what it feels like to want something you're scared to touch." He set his pencil down, his gaze piercing. "Maybe you don't need to write it. Maybe you just need to let it burn." My heart slammed against my ribs. I stood, needing space, and crossed to the window, the glass cool against my palm. He followed, stopping just behind me, his breath warm on my neck. "Elena," he said, my name a plea. I turned, our faces inches apart, his eyes searching mine. "What are you scared of?" he asked. My voice cracked. "You, this, everything it could mean." He nodded, like he carried the same fear. "I'm scared too." That moment broke something in me. A dam, not a wall. I shared more, poems raw with yearning, memories of my childhood neglect, the loneliness that had carved me hollow. He listened, his silence a kind of reverence. He shared too, his father's absence, his fear of never being enough, the sketches he drew to keep the darkness at bay. Our talks were a slow dance, each step bearing more of ourselves. The suspense grew with every night. Would we cross the line from longing to love? A storm hit one evening, rain lashing the studio's windows, the power flickering. We were alone, a single lamp casting shadows that danced across the walls. I read him a poem I'd written that morning, about a woman craving a touch she'd never known. My voice trembled, and when I stopped, the silence roared. Julian stood, crossing the room in 3 strides, and stopped before me. His hand rose, hesitant, then cupped my cheek, his thumb tracing my jaw, rough against my skin. The touch was fire, raw and electric. My eyes fluttered shut, my breath catching. "Elena," he said, his voice rough, "I've wanted you since the moment I saw you again." His words ignited the desire I'd buried for years, a flame roaring through me. I opened my eyes, meeting his, and saw my own hunger mirrored. "I've wanted you too," I whispered. He didn't kiss me yet. Instead, he took my hand, leading me to his sketchbook. He opened it to a drawing, a woman's silhouette against a storm, her hair wild, her face half hidden but unmistakably mine. "It's you," he said. "It's always you." The air thickened, heavy with need. I stepped closer, my silk blouse brushing his chest, the leather of his jacket cool against my arm. His hand slid to my neck, fingers tangling in my hair, his thumb pressing against the pulse at my throat, feeling it race. My hands found his waist, gripping the fabric of his shirt, the heat of his skin seeping through. The world narrowed to us, his breath ragged, my heart pounding, the rain's rhythm matching our pulse. He leaned in, lips hovering over mine, giving me a moment to pull away. I didn't. I tilted my head, closing the gap, and our mouths met in a kiss that was raw, urgent, consuming. His lips were warm, firm, tasting of coffee, and a sharp edge of longing held too long. My tongue brushed his, tentative, then bolder, a soft moan escaping my throat as the kiss deepened, our mouths moving in a hungry rhythm. His hands tightened on my hips, pulling me flush against him, my body molding to his, the hard planes of his chest pressing into my softness. My fingers dug into his shoulders, nails catching faintly on his shirt, feeling muscle shift beneath my touch. His mouth left mine, trailing hot, open-mouthed kisses down my jaw, my neck, pausing at my collarbone where his teeth grazed lightly, a shiver rippling through me. I gasped, my head tipping back, my hands sliding under his shirt, fingers tracing the taut lines of his abdomen, the faint ridge of a scar, the warmth of his skin sparking under my touch. He groaned, the sound vibrating against my throat as his lips found the sensitive hollow below my ear, sucking gently, leaving a faint mark that pulsed with heat. My blouse slipped off one shoulder, and his hand followed, calloused fingers gliding along my bare skin, tracing the curve of my shoulder, then lower, brushing the swell of my breast through the silk, a deliberate caress that drew a sharp inhale from me. I tugged at his shirt, desperate for more of him, and he pulled it off in one fluid motion, revealing the lean strength of his torso, shadows playing across his chest in the dim light. My hands roamed his skin, palms flat against his pecs, feeling his heartbeat thunder, my fingers tracing the faint trail of hair down his abdomen, stopping just above his jeans. His breath hitched, and he lifted me onto the edge of a table, my legs parting to let him stand between them, his hips pressing into mine, a subtle pressure that made my thighs clench, heat pooling low in my core. His hands slid under my blouse, fingers splaying across my lower back, then higher, deftly unhooking my bra with a soft snap. The fabric fell away, and he paused, his gaze darkening as he took me in, his breath a ragged exhale. "God damn, Elena," he murmured, voice thick with awe, and his hands cupped my breasts, slow and reverent, thumbs brushing over sensitive peaks, circling them in tight, teasing arcs that made me arch into him, a low whimper escaping my lips. My hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, my lips finding his again, the kiss fiercer, all teeth and need, my lips kissing him with my tongue, my body trembling. His mouth moved lower, kissing the tops of my breasts, then closing softly around a nipple, his tongue flicking gently, sending a jolt of pleasure through me. I moaned, louder now, my nails grazing his back, leaving faint red lines as my body arched into his mouth. He pulled back, eyes locked on mine, and tugged my blouse over my head, leaving me bare from the waist up, my skin flushed under his gaze. His hands slid down my sides, fingers digging into my hips, then lower, tracing the inner curve of my thighs through my jeans, his touch firm but teasing, stopping just short of where I ached most. I reached for his belt, fumbling with the buckle, my fingers brushing the hard line beneath his jeans, drawing a sharp groan from him. He caught my wrist, guiding my hand back to his chest, his voice a low growl. "Slow, Elena. I want to feel all of you." We sank to the studio floor, a blanket hastily pulled from a chair cushioning the hardwood. He hovered above me, his weight braced on one arm, his free hand unbuttoning my jeans, sliding them down my hips with a slow, deliberate pull, his fingers brushing the sensitive skin of my thighs, my hips, leaving a trail of heat. I kicked the jeans off, left in my panties, and he paused, his gaze raking over me, dark and reverent. His hand slid up my thigh, fingers slipping just under the lace edge, tracing the curve of my hip bone, then higher, cupping my breast again, his thumb brushing in slow, maddening circles. I arched into him, my hands roaming his back, nails digging lightly, feeling the flex of muscle as he shifted. My legs wrapped around his hips, pulling him closer, feeling the heat of him through his jeans, a shared rhythm building as our bodies pressed together. His mouth found my neck, kissing, nipping, his teeth grazing the pulse point, his breath hot and ragged. His hand slid between us, fingers brushing the damp fabric of my panties, a light, teasing touch that made me gasp, my hips bucking into his hand. He groaned, his control fraying, and kissed me again, deep and hungry, his tongue mirroring the rhythm of his fingers, slow and deliberate, drawing soft moans from me with every stroke. We didn't go further, didn't need to. This was our consummation, a raw, physical merging of our longing, every touch a confession, every kiss a vow. His hands, his lips, his body against mine, peeled away years of neglect, filling the hollow spaces with heat, truth, and love. The intensity of that moment, our bodies entwined, hearts pounding in sync, quenched the fire that had burned in us both. It was a sensual, emotional union that left us whole, Our desire sated not by completion, but by connection. We lay there after, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder, my skin still warm from his lips. The storm softened outside, the lamp steady now, bathing us in gold. We talked until dawn, about our fears, our dreams, the lives we wanted to build. He admitted he'd never let anyone this close, afraid they'd see his flaws. I told him I'd stopped believing I deserved love, but with him, I felt alive. Our hands stayed clasped, his thumb brushing my wrist, grounding me. The weeks that followed were a quiet unfolding. We spent evenings in the studio, trading poems and sketches, our love growing in small, sensual gestures. A kiss on a temple, a hand on a knee, a laugh shared in the rain. One night, under the studio's string lights, I read him a poem about two souls choosing to stay in the dark together. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace steady, certain. "I'm not going anywhere, Elena," he said, his voice a promise. I smiled, tears in my eyes. "Neither am I." That moment, wrapped in his warmth, was a second consummation, a vow to keep seeing each other, flaws and all. The loneliness that had defined me dissolved, replaced by a connection that felt like home. Julian didn't complete me. He helped me find myself, and I did the same for him. Our love was raw, real, and ours.